if I want to live a rich life, it goes back to that core of why I studied those things and why I'm interested in those things. When I started learning more about partnerships, I go, well, this is my ultimate goal just at scale. And if instead of it positively influencing an individual, I'm positively influencing a community or an ecosystem to generate value throughout that ecosystem, then that feels pretty great.
Welcome to the Friends with Benefits podcast, an Arcadia production. This is the show all about how to grow in business, lead with purpose, and live with intention. We're your co-hosting couple. I'm Jason.
And I'm Sam. Welcome to the show, friends.
This is the one with Will Taylor.
The one.
This is the one. I think that's the Friends titles he used to use.
Yeah.
But this is one I've been looking forward to a while. I've been talking to Will about bringing him on. Just haven't been able to make it work out. But he's got some really great stuff going on. People love Will on LinkedIn. And
in person.
And in person. That's, yeah, absolutely. But, people love Will. So they want to hear what he's up to. And I love his take on building relationships, building marketing through trust, which is a lot of things that we talked about. Mm-hmm. Trust marketing, if I may.
It's been interesting to watch Will's journey as he started at Partner Hacker, Reveal, now is starting his own company, but his steadfast belief in relationships has stayed strong throughout. However, he's one of the few that really, really puts onus on proof and being actionable about it. So
This one is good. Trust us.
See you out there.
Welcome to the show, everybody.
Will, we're so glad you're here. Long time coming.
Yes, finally. I was waiting for my invite, but I was waiting patiently. So
you also told us to wait.
You told us to wait.
You're too big of a deal.
I think you're right.
Should we start off by talking about mustaches?
Well, yours is definitely much better than mine. But however, I'm glad that you have one.
All of a sudden, I feel a little left out.
You participate in the mustache. You have the final say.
I'm okay with the fact that you feel left out. Actually, I'm really glad that you feel left out of this conversation.
Actually, but
Anyway, we're here to talk about Will Taylor today. Will, it's been like Sam said, a long time coming, long time friend. You and I have worked together in at least one stop. Now we're hanging out in Arcadia together. You've been to both of our conferences or events, experiences, whatever we're calling these things. So,
Arcadian Luminary of the Month.
That's right. Arcadia Luminary of the Month. So, man, it's been great getting to know you and running around with you. I feel like I've learned a ton from you and I've gotten a ton of value out of our friendship. So thank you for that. I know the listeners will today. So all that to say is great to have you here, man.
Great to be here. I appreciate you saying that. I'm always humbling myself and saying I am the student, not the teacher, although I do create content and teach and whatnot, but I'm just sharing what I'm learning. So I am a sponge, but I'm glad that it impacts you.
Works for everybody, including yourself. So we did have a little stop together at Reveal, Nearbound, whatever we're going to call that. From your content and LinkedIn and your voice just out in the wild there, people have come to know you as somebody with a strong voice in partnerships and someone who's now building an agency, right? And all of that did come from the work you did at Partner Hacker, which, I think a lot of what the voice and the network that Partner Hacker grew is probably from you and your content. So we're all grateful for that. But, over the last 5 years, you've had kind of quite the transition, right? When you look back on those times, and I think you even started Vidyard, what do you think shaped you the most?
I would actually like to pay respects to the first person I sent my content to, who is a friend of the show and fellow Arcadian and attendee of events, which is Morgan Ingram. Basically, what happened was I was laid off from my role as a salesperson selling software to government agencies, which was a lot of fun, and I was doing pretty well. But it was because of COVID. And so I was like, okay, well, let me write at the very least. I've always liked writing. And I saw people posting on LinkedIn, and that's how I found Morgan. And then I sent him some of my content, and it was lessons of going BDR to AE and why sales is amazing and all that kind of stuff. So it was on brand for what Morgan cares about.
Was there anything in particular that Morgan said that was like, yes, this is why I'm talking to Morgan?
He responded, which was nice.
You didn't know him?
Didn't know him whatsoever.
Okay.
I just knew that he created content. He was a content creator. And I was like, hey, I wrote this. What do you think? You know this space much more than I do. Generally throwing that out there to try and connect with another person. He gave, a positive response, and he was very, very respectful. We didn't have a chat or anything like that. But the reason I'm mentioning that will tie in a bit later, but that kind of kickstarted my journey of at least being content aware. And I wasn't creating content more than the like 2 or 3 blog posts that I had created. And I was doing work at Vidyard in my first partnerships role. However, what I learned during that year at Vidyard was there wasn't a lot of that type of content out there. And so I thought, well, what if I started to create some of that content myself? Because if no one else is, then I'll at least share my learnings. And then when I had left Vidyard, went to another company, there was a goal for the team to create more content in general, especially on LinkedIn, because they were in the sales tech space. And that's when the content on LinkedIn was having its heyday.
The good old days.
Yeah. Oh, tell me about it. And so there was an actual incentive to create content and to continue to network. And so one, I was effectively paid to create content, but then it started to build both attention for our business, but then also for myself. And that's when I was let go from that role after about 8 to 10 months or so. Then the media company of Partner Hacker was just around the corner, and they had crazy ideas of, hey, let's do this thing. And I said, sure, because I was, at least one of the more visible people. And then that's when I was like, here's how I grow my career. And there was a second, like, very inspiring moment, which was I did a blog post with Crossbeam while I was at Vidyard. And that blog post got me that next role that I just mentioned. So the person reached out to me because they saw me featured in that blog piece. And they said, you're an expert, I want to hire you. And that told me one piece of content got me a job. So what if I create thousands of pieces of content? That's going to do something pretty significant that I can't even fathom right now. So that's what really started the journey. The initial engagement with Morgan, and then that blog post, and then just the incentive and the rhythm that I was starting to build.
Okay, so since then you probably have created 1,000 pieces of content.
Probably, yeah.
Do you keep a tally?
I don't, but I should. And I should try and create milestones. That would be a cool timeline of like things that have happened that are indirectly related to the content. Because what keeps me going is I go to an event and someone who's never engaged with my content says, hey, I love your content.
I know. Isn't that a thing? You're like,
and
do you though?
blows my mind. Blows my mind. And it's to the point where I've had people say, we tell all of our new partnerships hires to go follow you and save your content. And we have a bank of your content. I'm like, at least leave a like, please.
Yeah, like, can you give me anything?
Yeah. That's like the unknown of the effect. I'm like, okay, I'll keep going. So
1,000 pieces of content. We're just going to use that as a baseline. Like, that's really overwhelming for a lot of people. I like how you started this with you're a student, not a teacher. And I think that can kind of lead into this next question. But what do you think has helped you stand out in kind of the massive content as you've gone through this journey?
I think it's 2 things. One is I basically use it more as a personal diary, personal professional diary, where I'm noting down my thoughts of the day, my thoughts of the week, which could be something like, I did this thing, let me try and like organize that into a step-by-step for myself, which why not share that with other people? That's going to help others as well. And now they get the step-by-step. And so the thought process of this is just my public diary of my, day-to-day as a professional, that makes it easy to create content. And then also it's sharing something of value because it's like something that most people don't usually share, even though we're in a much more like sharing community and sharing economy right now. That's the one thing. And then the second thing is not getting caught up in the hype. So, it's nice to get the likes and the followers and all that. But there have been times where I've gone in the direction more of I'm doing this post just to do a post and I'm not as intentional and I'm looking for the dopamine and it gets me the dopamine, but I'm like, this doesn't really feel like it's actually bringing value to anyone else, technically, other than to myself. So trying to avoid that, I've been especially on that right now where like I'm posting no picture, it's like no fancy hook, and I'm doing that intentionally to note down everything I need to, which is helpful. It's not getting all the impressions, but I want to build that authority, and that comes from sharing value. So what's valuable? Well, I know what I'm doing is valuable. So just sharing more of what I'm doing. And if I'm using that as a tool to organize my own thoughts as at the same time, then it's going to build that authority and distribute that value. So that's how I think about it. And it's like, that's how I get the reps in. It's easy as, well, I was going to note down my thoughts anyways in an SOP. Why not just do that publicly?
Let's talk a little bit about some of the work you've been doing the previous couple of years before starting AudienceLed, like in partnerships, and a lot of your content still revolves around partnerships. Like, I want to know, like, why partnerships matter to you. Like, what is it about partnerships that really gets you going?
If I want to live a rich life, it goes back to that core of why I studied those things and why I'm interested in those things. And when I was studying to become a therapist, I grappled with the idea of like, it doesn't feel right to like charge someone to help them with their personal challenges, but it feels right to charge them for their business challenges. So that's just sales, in a nutshell, in a very simplified way. And all the fundamentals still apply of like, how do you positively influence someone? How do you guide them? And it's through the structure of facilitating, the relationship. But then when I started learning more about partnerships, I go, well, this is my ultimate goal just at scale. And if instead of positively influencing an individual, I'm positively influencing a community or an ecosystem to generate value throughout that ecosystem. And if I can be like a catalyst for it or even the orchestrator of that, then that feels pretty great. So everything that I'm learning, it's all in an effort to bring it back to, I always call it like the real world, where it's not just businesses making businesses more money, which is nice because money's nice, but it's generating value for a local community or society or culture at large. So learning the processes of having the business incentive and requiring the structure to facilitate relationships strategically in an ecosystem for a business is not only fascinating to me, but also so empowering because I go, everything I learn here, it can be applied to my friend group, to my family, to my local community, and even in my one-to-one conversations, my personal relationships. So everything that I do, it has to tie back to my personal life or else it's not worth it. And that's why I'm so incredibly interested in partnerships because it is everything I just described. But what I love about business is a playground to not only test your skills, but you're forced to do it right because there's dollars on the line or people's jobs on the line. And that requires a lot of accountability and responsibility. So that's why, I don't have a business background, but I'm like, I love business because it forces me not to be lazy in how I approach my relationships. And I need to bring structure and intentionality. And, if I have 30 minutes, I can't just loaf around in the 30 minutes. I need to be direct and clear and still layer in some, personable elements of making people laugh and feel good and all that kind of stuff. So it's honestly just so aligned. And I think it's the perfect place for learning the skills to navigate a healthy life because you live longer when you have more relationships.
I think we have very similar alignment, I guess, is around like why we're in this work because like I feel very much the same purpose behind it. to the point where like early in my career, I had a mentor that told me, is like, we were just talking about career. I didn't really have a career path at the time. I was, kind of fresh out of college back in the day. Sam said, this is Sam Chappell,
Not me.
Sam, but my wife. He said, you know what, Jason, you should be a facilitator. You're good at groups, relationships, connecting, stuff like that. I was like, Sam, that sounds like a pipe dream. Like, I think you're making stuff up right now. And it took me a while to find it. But when I got in my first role, I kind of saw the opportunity, like, oh, we're facilitating relationships, conversations, groups of people. And we're tasked with this really fun opportunity to kind of connect all these different pieces that otherwise wouldn't connect. The sales orgs, the marketing orgs, products, CS, executives, and like all these, and you're crossing all these different streams of business and opportunities and customer bases, et cetera. And my first thought when I kind of figured out what I was doing in partnerships at PFL, might have taken me longer than most, but I sat there and I was like, holy crap, this is what Sam Chappell was talking about. And I found it, I was like, this is just the best opportunity ever. And I fell in love with the job, the role, the people, and the ability to go out and build relationships. And we have this podcast as a result of it, right? And I don't know if you know this, but we've told on the podcast before, but like the whole premise of this name came from the fact that my parents were like, we still have no idea what you do. And I'm like, that's cool. Don't worry about it. I get paid to make friends, and we're pretty good at it. And those friends have certain benefits to companies in the form of revenue and money. And so it's friends with benefits.
Heck yeah.
So there we go.
There's other meanings too, but
we'll leave those to the minds of the listener.
Well, I like that you kind of crossed the line of like, this is, you didn't use this word, but it's an ethos, it's a mantra. It ties back to how you lead your personal life and your business life, and those two things are blurred. That can be a touchy subject for people in business. They like to have a clear-cut line of like, these are business relationships, these are personal relationships. So I want to hear your opinion on, in your thoughts, what do you think most people get wrong about building these purpose-built relationships?
There's the people doing it that I think they get something wrong, and then the people outside of it looking in that I think they get wrong. So I'll answer in both those perspectives. So I think the people doing it, what they often get wrong is not necessarily, it's not a conscious wrongdoing, but I think it's just naturally occurring in the nature of the relationship, where you get an emotional reaction to trusting someone based on the FaceTime you have with them and talking about the projects that you could be working on. And I think people doing the work, what we get wrong is we attribute that to progress and value, which, although like it technically is, you need trust. So that's like a milestone, but it's not the progress. And it's hard to discern that because you are making friends and you are building a relationship, and that can be rewarding. That reward itself can distract you from looking at, let's say, the fundamentals of why is your business paying you to do this, which is to ultimately impact the bottom line, and or, by proxy, or rather it impacts the bottom line because you're generating value for the end buyer. It's distracting because it's emotional and it's a part of relationships. And so that's what I think we can often get wrong. And that leads me to, like, I constantly beat this drum of the simplest form of advice I give to partner people is, if you show up with an agenda, you ask direct questions about what they care about, you tie back what they care about to the programs that you talk about in your meeting, and then you set a clear next step. Like, that is table stakes. And I, as someone who's not, I don't consider myself businessy, I'm like, how is that not a thing for every single meeting that every person ever does? Because that's what moves the needle, is really pushing the action forward. And I think it's because in partnerships, it's very wide, it's complex, it's intricate, and there's this relationship element where you go, great, I won their trust. And in this complexity, that's obviously very important. And that gives me this emotional reaction. So I'm not saying no one moves the needle, but I think it is distracting. Even if you are trying to move the needle and impact the business, that thing is very distracting. the people on the outside, what I think they get wrong about partnerships is that it's only pipeline generating and it's the stakes and handshakes, which this is burned into my mind. There's someone who is at, call it a research firm. They're very academic in their approach. What they said to me, they said, I used to be a partnerships person, and my perception of them is they are the silver-tongued sweet talkers, where they'll make you feel good. They'll give you really good ideas, but then it's like hard to attribute and hard to really identify what the impact is. And the part that I don't like about what they said was not that it like triggered me emotionally, but I'm like, I actually kind of agree to a degree because of that feeling. Now, I think those are like too specific and too harsh of words, and they were in the role before, so I think they have some leeway, and they're a tenured professional, so they have experience in this.
They're not wrong to some extent for some folks in the industry. That some of the folks in the industry are just kind of giving a bad rep to those of us out there who actually are doing more than just sweet talking.
Agreed. What that wrapped for me as like they put the bow on, well, why does the CRO or the board not see this function as we know it should be seen as? And that's because, yeah, perception, but then also given the complexity and call it like a bit more of the newness of it, there's less of this documentation of how do you prove it? How do you actually run your program? And, there's 20 types of partners that you could engage with. And so how do you really build a playbook and communicate that effectively? It's very wide and complex, but that's where my mind goes, is bring it back to the fundamentals. And if you speak in fundamentals, if you can speak to the CFO and how they understand the business, then you win, because that's the simplest form. And from my experience, I mean, again, I've been sharing what I've been learning, and it's only until the last year or so that I actually had like P&L competencies like thrown at me or taught to me. And that, for me, maybe that's because of my own searching, maybe that's because of the people that I interacted with, but like at large, I'm like, that should be the number one thing every single time, is how does this impact that bottom line for that CFO? Because we say that it impacts, the whole life cycle, but why aren't we proving it and show it? That got under my skin, because I'm like, I'm a prove it type of person. I don't really like hyperbole and all this stuff. And again, I got caught up in a bit of that hype. And so I'm like, oh, that's going to influence my career. Like, I want to make a lot of money and impact a lot of people. And the way I do that is not through this hype. And so I don't create content about the P&L yet, because I'm still learning it. And so I'll probably be sharing a bit about our own business. And as we get more data with clients, then I'll be sharing that as well. But that fact makes me think, oh, that's shocking that, I went 2, 3 years, 4 years before that being a thing that I should learn about. And that's what I think, both rightly and wrongly, the people outside of the function think about the function, and it's on us to prove it. It's not on them to prove it. It's not on the board, the CFO, the CEO. Right. If they believe in it, that's going to help. But like, we should have the rigor starting with nobody believes this. So yeah, I need to prove it.
And I think it is really interesting. So I fell, quote unquote, onto 2 executive teams, and being on those teams was a huge learning curve for me, because that's what we're talking about. Like, and I think a lot of people step into partner manager roles or even partner leader roles, and they don't have that seat at the table. And so they don't take the initiative to learn those things. And that's kind of like the chicken before the egg. Like, you don't have a seat at the table because you don't know how to have the conversation. And you don't know how to have the conversation because you don't have a seat at the table. But one of those things is in your control. So learning about that and actually talking about how your business ties back to the bottom line, to every stage of the customer life cycle, all of those things is so impactful, rather than we went to a happy hour and I made 10 connects and things are great. Like, yep. Tell that to a CFO, and that's not how things get done in this world.
Yeah, not to mention getting a promotion or even like helping your partner. Like, if you care, I'll call it a problem. This is the problem I have with the idea of like trust first Trust is very important. However, I believe you build trust on like a very good foundation. And that foundation is with structure in how you engage, specificity in what you ask about and how you speak, and clarity on what you're doing and what it's impacting. And all those things go together. And in my mind, I'm like, if my friend showed up to me in my personal life and said, I need you to do this and we need to work together on this thing. If I just said, yeah, sounds good, let's plan it out, and we've created this plan and it's 6 months out and it just like never happens, it never produces the result that my friend ultimately said that they wanted. Obviously, it's probably not going to be as complex as a business relationship, but like I would feel like a failure for my friend if they came to me asking for this help. And so for our business relationships, I'm like, why is that not the priority to say, I build your trust by producing actual tangible results that impact you, and leading with that and creating structure around that? I think that's how we move the needle. It doesn't sit well where we say, build trust and that's through your personal influence. Again, great that happens, but that needs to be on a solid foundation.
I mean, it's absolutely necessary when you sit in between so many people, but it's all a byproduct of just how you show up, how you deliver, how you care, and how you provide value, right? We talk a lot about, partnerships being a two-way street of value, right? I think if you're focusing more on how you can provide value to the partner instead of just holding your hand out, and you show up in ways that benefits them, like then you can truly win them over. And I know you and I have had many talks about trust, right? And I think it's something that it's kind of an unspoken but often overlooked principle of our job, so to say. And that also like the trust that it takes to win on the internal team. We kind of just assume that because we're hired by this company that we have, their quote unquote trust. But I'm currently building a new program, and I feel like it took a while for them to kind of see like, okay, hey, yep, we trust what this guy can do. We know what he can deliver on. Just because you have a good reputation, you build a lot of content or whatever, like you're still, anytime you go somewhere new, start over, you're tasked with, rebuilding trust. I think we have to understand the structure that takes, to your point.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, it's the intentional communication and organization of it that, like I said, I'm like, maybe I'm a zealot for it now and like anti ideas and much more focused on outputs and outcomes. It's easy to get lost in the ideas and the relationship itself in partnerships. Like every idea, every partnership will sound like a good idea until you start trying to implement it. Every integration is going to make sense. It's going to be logical, but like, can you actually do it? That's like, the idea doesn't matter at that point. Like, get the data, validate, does that integration make sense? Does this relationship make sense? Start there. Don't start with, hey, I think there's something here. Let's go deeper, because then you can waste a lot of time and resources. And that's how people get let go. And again, I'm like a zealot about this because I'm like, I don't want to get let go. I have been let go before. It's not nice. So we need to change that. And if it's me teaching it, then I'll teach it however I can.
Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit because what you're doing now is very tangential, but a little different. So talk to us about AudienceLed. Why did you start this? What is it? What are you doing?
AudienceLed is a demand gen marketing agency. We're a team for hire that's going to execute on running demand gen programs. Our shtick is we work with third parties exclusively. So we layer on top of whatever a marketing team is doing, and we don't replace people. Instead, we amplify everything that they are doing, and we do that with third parties. And that's everywhere from the customer that you have, because they are a third party that your buyer trusts. Why not activate them? All the way through to the influencer creating content on LinkedIn, all the way through to formal partners, and all the way through to media sponsorships and field events, because that's where buyers show up. So we intelligently map where buyers are engaging, and then we identify with who or with which entities they're engaging with, where are they spending their attention and trust credits. And then we strategically engage them in coordinated efforts that align with the client's narrative as well as the third party's narrative. and based on the incentives that those third parties would be categorized into. How do they make money? That's generally how we then say, well, this is how we're going to engage and help you make that money, which is going to benefit the client. So at the core, it is demand gen marketing, agency, team for hire, and we aim to impact lead generation and pipeline generation. And again, all through third parties.
Nice. And I love that you kind of brought that word back up again, at trust, and that you're marketing on behalf of companies by tapping into the trust that customers or influencers or whatever somebody already has. So instead of, maybe investing way too much money into, cold outbound strategy, how do you begin to tap into like your ecosystem of trust?
What did you call it, Will? Trust tokens? Did you say tokens?
Credits.
Credits.
Yeah, attention and
that.
trust credits, because we only have so many, minutes and hours in the day. So buyers are spending those. They keep their trust credits a lot closer than their attention credits, but they're spending those in places. And that's also generally where they're going to be spending their dollars, if not their time.
Well, I feel like if, 80% of buyers have already made up their mind of who they want to go work with or what vendor they're going to purchase, like, a huge percentage of that is coming from those people that they're already talking to, right? Whether it's your partners, your customers, or your influencers out there, where they're listening to them, on LinkedIn or something. So they're getting their thoughts and ideas from somewhere, So I think it's brilliant to be able to offer an opportunity for someone to tap into that, because a lot of people don't know. Like I've worked with a lot of companies that want to work with me because of my network or my sphere of influence. So there's a world of opportunity out there that I think marketers are just missing out on by not finding their people who can champion their cause.
Yes, and marketers have been forced to look to inwards at what are the metrics and the levers to pull, and should I just spend more on our ad platform? And those are not like the wrong tactics or even the wrong strategies, because they can work, and they definitely worked a lot more before. But the over-indexing on our company, only our company, protect our channels and talk about nothing else. We've over-indexed in that, and we've left the buyer behind, because buyers are seeing through that now. They go, oh, this is just a SEO gamed article. They're just targeting me because they bought some list for their outbound agency or what have you. And again, not the wrong tactics or the wrong strategies. They can work, but buyers are only increasingly identifying, well, this is a company-centric approach. And so we tried to layer into those actual functions and workflows that exist that are well attributed, that they can attribute. We just layer in third parties so that it is higher conversion, more distribution, and ultimately going to impact the buyer psychologically much more positively, both in the method of reaching them and the context and the content that specifically is reaching them as well.
Got it. So I know you're a man of intention and ethos. What would you say is the core ethos of AudienceLed?
So our tagline is go to market with the market. And the whole ethos is, if you create a platform for others to become famous in, then that's going to have not only a feel-good impact, but it'll increase this brand awareness and the organic mention that happens in the community, the 80% of the decision being made before they actually come to your business. And your customers will be more loyal, your buyers will convert faster, and your brand perception will be increased as well out there in the market, because you are this platform. If I am a demand gen marketer and I'm evaluating, the market at large, my job, my career, and someone says, if you go over here, whether you buy our solution or not, you're going to get good content. So you're going to get the value if you're just consuming, or if you want to put yourself out there, you can do that too. They're going to go over to that vendor every single time. They're going to go to their events, read their content, and that's how the community is going to be made. It's not going to be this closed off network of, it's in a Slack group, nothing wrong with that, but it's this like identity that you can associate and others can associate with.
Yeah. Let's say where I'm at right now, NAC, they do a pretty good job of tapping into some of those people that are buyers' trust. You see a lot of deals coming in that are influenced by 3 specific people that are really present, and I would consider them trustworthy in the marketing landscape. So it's really cool to see that, you know, a company like this is tapping into that and really making a big impact with those guys and women.
A lot of what you just talked about, I think, could be tied or closely akin to co-marketing in the partnership world. Let's talk about that for a minute. Like, I've heard you actually say you believe most partnerships should be co-marketing oriented, and I don't disagree. But I think that that's a hard thing for people to get their head around because it's sometimes can feel like a slower path to revenue. So talk to us about that.
Yes. So I took a hard look at the different partner types and how they could impact different parts of the buyer's journey, starting with the core revenue metrics and working backwards, essentially, because I wanted to have a bit more of my own competency around what does a business care about? How does it operate from marketing to sales to success and onwards? And so in that exercise, I was thinking through, well, if someone asked me to advise them on starting partnerships, how would I navigate that? Let's say if I'm just getting introduced to their business, but there's some fundamental things that I should know. How mature are they? Do they have product market fit? Who's doing the sales? What is the go-to-market like right now? Where are they strong? And what is their solution type and business structure? Things like, how are they charging? Is it a high ticket or a low ticket? Is it PLG? Is it very hands-on? And so on. And in this exercise, I was going, okay, well, where can partners actually help for those different parameters? And I created a matrix that is still a resource being developed, but you can input, you know, those different things and then get a recommendation. And so when I thought about, well, what's kind of this like sweeping generalization, industry agnostic, but like using some of those core parameters, and the output was I couldn't feel confident in saying that most organizations of different types and ticket size and all that, and maturity, et cetera, I couldn't confidently recommend that co-sell or looking at just the sales part of the buyer's journey to be the area to focus on, because there was so much more opportunity outside of that. And it was also for a very specific type of organization that was generally higher ticket and more serviceable. That's when you can start to work with resellers and service partners and so on. And that's where there's a really good fit for co-sell. Sometimes tech partners too, but generally tech sellers, again, for a majority of recommendation, I would say most tech sellers only know how to sell what they are selling. They don't know how to sell with partners.
Maybe even then, sometimes that's a challenge. So adding on a partner technology is, and I say that lovingly.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. So that's where I'm like, okay, well, if I were to recommend something, where's the easiest place to start? And where's the easiest place to expand across the buyer's journey that can still impact the core revenue metrics? And it's co-marketing. There's more partner types and more situations across the different company structures that exist where co-marketing fits than co-sell. So that's how I came to the conclusion. And you mentioned it's like, you know, more upstream from revenue. Well, the other reason that I thought this was important to explore was because marketing has also been tasked with proving it a lot over the last 10 to 15 to 20 years. And that's where a lot of this technology in the MarTech space has been developed. And so if they have kind of already figured out, well, how do we attribute a piece of content to impacting revenue, we should tag along for that ride. And we should learn a lot, and we should do a lot of execution in those systems that they already have.
There's no sense in reinventing the wheel. Yeah.
Exactly.
They've done it.
Yeah. So if we really want to prove it, and it's more often the case that co-marketing is a good fit, then we should work with marketing and we should implement into their systems and then continue to collect that data of, well, here's why working with partners is better than doing it alone. And that will have a downstream effect to sales as well, because that's inevitable, whether the partner's present in the sale or not. If we say lead gen and pipe gen is better with third parties, then sales is going to either close them faster, or we're going to have the metrics anyways based on the initial tagging. So, you know, if we were to start anywhere, it's there. And then again, I'll die on the hill, at least for now, that co-marketing is better suited for most organizations.
But most want to start with the co-sell. They just want to go straight to the pipeline and the revenue, which is fine. That's what they know, right? So it's up to us to come in and, again, there's that word, build that trust with the team and show them like, hey, this is a more upstream path to getting there. And, can we start from this perspective, work towards getting, a better co-sell motion established, trust across the board with our partners, and help them understand like how we can begin to build pipeline and leads through something they already know. I like to call it coming in, doing old things in new ways, right? There's, to Sam's point, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. You guys know how to do webinars. You know how to build campaigns. You know how to do this. Let me just show you how to do it in a more, streamlined manner by bringing someone along for the ride and tap into the trust that they have with their people.
Exactly.
And begin to break it down that way. Then it's like, okay, we're listening. Let's run some experiments. Let's try some things out. Let me show you how it works. Let's not try to boil the ocean in one quarter. Let's take it step by step and then boom, roll with it.
And I'd also venture to say that like marketing is better situated to run tests, because if sales is running tests, like that increases the risk. Marketing is used to spending, 80% on what works, 20% on tests, give or take. And so they have this scientific method already, and sales is like,
close the deal, period.
Yeah, exactly. There's more risk in changing what's already working for sales. So
let's bring it home with a topic that I know you and I both love. You're a guy who likes to do hard things, likes to challenge yourself and push yourself to do more on the personal perspective, sometimes physical perspective. Like for you, Will Taylor, what drives that?
When I was about 24, I realized that I was thinking too much and not doing enough. And that kept me safe. And I think that's why I was doing it. I would think about things, I would write about it, and then I would have this idea of myself, and that was not reality. And I'm like, well, I'm so nice. Why don't people like me more? Or, I know I can do this thing, but I'm not doing it. And there was that dissonance there. And so I flipped the script and I said, well, I have to do the things. And that's the thing that's scary, because if I do it, I could fail. But the more I fail, the more repetition I get in, the better I'm going to become at it. And the more closely aligned with that ideal version of myself I will be. So if the boundaries before were smaller, because I wasn't really pushing them, the more I push against those boundaries, the larger they get. And that makes me more competent and more well-rounded. And ultimately, that gets more out of life. I can navigate life better. I can find enjoyment for things more. For example, I used to work in a factory for a summer job. And I told myself that I don't want to do that. Like, it's too limiting. It's like very constrictive. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to, chase my dreams. And so, to do that, I need to push further.
So for you, it's about like proving to yourself that you have what it takes.
Yeah, because I wasn't proving. I was like, I am this person, but then I wasn't. And it's like, well, it's like not keeping a promise to yourself. It's almost disrespectful to that vision to not take action on it. So the intentionality to be able to do that in the moment of, if I'm emotionally agitated with my romantic partner and I don't take the intention to be patient because that's how I ultimately want to be, then like I'm going to make the mistake I don't want to make. And that's not what I want to do in life. Yeah. And so why not just actually do it and, get the chutzpah to be able to do it and just do what you need to do. I love this quote. I think it's from Alex Hormozy, where he says, a patient person doesn't feel patient in the moment. They're experiencing all the emotions that you're experiencing, but they're choosing to be patient. And that really impacts me because I also like to be patient. And it works. I've seen it in myself over and over again. And it allows me to show up exactly how I want to be and how I intend to be. And that's very fulfilling. And you only get there by doing the hard stuff.
I love what you just said, because I think there's so much like conversation right now around manifestation, and you can think about shit all day long, but until you take that first step, like it's just not going to happen. So you embody that. And it's an honor to see it and, be on the outskirts of rooting you on. So Will, thank you for joining us today. This has been awesome.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And you said you're on the outskirts. I would say not so much on the outskirts. The Arcadia group is very much so close to impacting me and providing me guidance. You're in the central sphere of influence.
Well, happy to be there. If people, I mean, obviously LinkedIn, you're there, you're very active. Anywhere else that people should go to learn more about you?
Well, if you're interested, AudienceLed.com. But otherwise, just LinkedIn for now. I've been thinking about other channels, but you'll get all the thoughts through there, tactics, personal updates, all that kind of stuff. So follow along. And if you're a lurker, leave a like once in a while so I get the algo boost, please.
From lurker to liker, the journey of Will Taylor.
All right, friends, thank you so much for another great episode. We'll see you next time. Will, we appreciate you immensely, and we'll talk to you all soon.
See y'all.